German commanders couldn't understand how Allied forces predicted every move they made. Changed routes still intercepted. Altered schedules still caught. Secret plans somehow discovered a hidden breakthrough changed everything. One secret program they never suspected. A discovery that shifted the entire conflict. What they learned was far more sophisticated than anyone imagined. The impossible pattern. A German convoy changes its route at the last minute. The commander feels confident nobody knows the new path. But within hours, Allied aircraft appear exactly where they shouldn't be. This wasn't luck. It kept happening again and again. German officers gathered in their command rooms, staring at maps marked with red circles. Every interception point, every coincidence. The pattern was undeniable. Something was very wrong. One commander wrote in his report, "It's as if they're reading our minds." They tried everything. Changed communication times, used different roads, sent false information through their own channels. Nothing worked. The Allies still knew. The German high command started asking dangerous questions. Was there a spy? Had someone been compromised? Or was something far bigger happening, something they hadn't even considered? But the truth was hiding in plain sight in something they used every single day, the confidence that blinded them. German commanders trusted their communications system completely. They believed it was unbreakable. Their engineers had created something they called the ultimate secret-keeping machine. It scrambled messages into millions of possible combinations. Every morning, operators would set their machines using secret daily codes. The same message would look completely different each time it was sent. To crack it, you'd need to try millions of combinations, and you'd have to do it before the code changed the next day. Impossible, their experts said. Mathematically impossible. So German forces communicated freely. They sent detailed plans, troop movements, supply routes, everything. After all, why worry? The system protected them. Commanders never imagined that across the channel in a secret location, hundreds of people were doing the impossible every single day. They were reading those scrambled messages almost as fast as the Germans could send them. And it all started with one captured piece of equipment that changed everything. The machine they thought was safe. The device sat on a small table. It looked like a typewriter with extra parts, lights, rotors, plugs, and wires. German operators carried these machines everywhere. Submarines had them. Tank commanders had them. Even aircraft used portable versions. Press a letter and a different letter would light up. The scrambled letter went into the message. The person receiving it would use their identical machine set the same way to unscramble it back to normal. Brilliant, secure, trusted. But here's what German commanders didn't know. The Allies had gotten their hands on these machines. Not just one, several. Through various operations, captures, and intelligence work, they possessed the actual devices. However, having the machine wasn't enough. Without knowing the daily settings, which rotors to use, where to position them, how to connect the plugs, the machine was just a useless box of parts. So how did the Allies figure out the settings that changed every single day? The hidden war nobody saw. While combat happened on battlefields, another war was being fought in secret in a countryside location. Thousands of people worked day and night. Mathematicians, linguists, engineers, chess champions, anyone who could solve complex puzzles. They intercepted German messages constantly. Radio operators listened and recorded every transmission. The scrambled messages poured in by the hundreds every day. Then came the hard part, unscrambling them before they became useless. A message about tomorrow's convoy route had to be decoded today. Time was always running out. The team developed special calculating machines, early computers that could test thousands of possible settings in hours instead of years. They looked for patterns, repeated phrases, common words that might appear in military messages. German weather reports became goldmine clues. Messages often started the same way, following predictable formats. These patterns gave the code reekers their way in. But even with all this effort, they needed something more, a weakness the Germans kept creating themselves. The mistakes that cost everything. German operators were human, and humans make mistakes, especially when doing the same task hundreds of times. Some operators got lazy with settings. They'd use simple, memorable patterns instead of random ones. Birthdays, girlfriends' names spelled out in rotor positions, repeated sequences because they were easy to remember. Some messages contained predictable content. Military reports followed standard formats. Orders used the same phrases. Even the way Germans said nothing to report became a clue because they said it the same way every time. The biggest gift to code ears when operators sent the same message twice or when they retransmitted a message that didn't get through the first time. Now the Allies could compare two versions and find patterns. One particularly helpful mistake. Lazy operators sometimes used weak daily settings or forgot to change settings when they should have. These shortcuts saved German operators a few minutes, but gave the Allies exactly what they needed. And once the Allies could read these messages, they discovered something shocking about German military planning. Reading the enemy's playbook. Imagine playing chess against someone who can see your next 5 moves written down in front of them. That's what German commanders were facing without knowing it. Allied intelligence read detailed invasion plans before they happened. Supply ship routes and schedules, submarine patrol areas, aircraft squadron orders, convoy movements with exact times and locations. This information went straight to military planners. They positioned ships where German submarines would be hunting. They sent aircraft to intercept supply convoys. They avoided areas where German forces were strongest and struck where defenses were weakest. German commanders noticed the pattern but drew the wrong conclusions. They suspected spies, communication breaches, even betrayal from within their own ranks. Some officers stopped trusting their colleagues. Paranoia spread through command structures, but they never suspected the real answer. Their unbreakable communication system had been broken. Their most secret tool had become their greatest weakness. The advantage this gave the Allies was so valuable that they had to keep it secret even at terrible costs. The secret they couldn't share. Allied commanders faced an impossible choice. They could read German plans, but using that information could reveal their secret. If the Germans realized their communications were compromised, they'd change systems immediately. The advantage would vanish. So Allied intelligence created careful rules. They couldn't act on every piece of information they received. Sometimes they had to let smaller operations succeed to protect the bigger secret. When they did act on intelligence, they created cover stories. They'd send reconnaissance aircraft over an area first so Germans would think that's how the location was discovered, not through decoded messages. They even allowed some of their own forces to walk into dangerous situations when warning them would seem too suspicious. These were devastating decisions weighing individual operations against the largest strategic advantage. The secret was so closely guarded that even most Allied commanders didn't know the real source of their intelligence. But eventually the Germans started to realize something was terribly wrong, and they came dangerously close to the truth when suspicion almost exposed everything. By late in the conflict, some German commanders were asking the right questions. Too many coincidences. Too many perfect intercepts. The pattern was impossible to ignore. German intelligence conducted investigations. They brought in their top security experts to examine their communication systems. They looked for weaknesses, tested the machines, ran security checks on personnel. Some analysts came uncomfortably close to the truth. They suggested carefully, because questioning the system seemed almost like treason, that perhaps the machine wasn't as secure as everyone believed. But German leadership couldn't accept it. They'd invested everything in this system. Their entire military strategy depended on secure communications. Admitting it was compromised meant admitting their greatest advantage was actually their greatest vulnerability. So they dismissed the concerns. They blamed other factors: spies, careless talk, bad luck, reconnaissance aircraft, anything except the truth. The Allies held their breath during these investigations. If Germany changed their system, years of work would be lost. The secret held, and by the time German commanders learned the truth, it was far too late. The revelation that changed history. After the conflict ended, captured German officers finally learned what had happened. Allied intelligence revealed the program that had been reading their most secret communications for years. The reactions were recorded: shock, disbelief, then devastating realization. One high-ranking commander said, "We fought with our hands tied behind our backs and never knew it." Another stated, "Everything we planned, they knew. Every move we made, they expected." Historians later calculated that this intelligence advantage shortened the conflict by years. It saved countless lives. It changed the outcome of critical operations that could have gone very differently. The program that broke the German codes remained classified for decades. The people who worked there couldn't tell their families what they'd done. Some of the greatest contributions to the Allied effort stayed secret for 30 years after it ended. The sophisticated intelligence breakthrough, the secret program nobody suspected, and the discovery that shifted everything. It all came down to breaking what Germans believed was unbreakable, reading what they thought was unreadable, and knowing what they believed was unknowable. The air war over Germany revealed how Allied strategic bombing campaigns succeeded against determined Luftwaffe resistance. German air defense adapted constantly, yet Allied bomber route strategies evolved faster. Commanders who once directed fighter squadrons to counter these formations later admitted they faced an invisible disadvantage. The tactical adjustments, the defensive positions, the countermeasures all became predictable to an enemy reading their communications. This hidden factor transformed the entire air battle, turning what should have been evenly matched encounters into operations, where one side held information the other never knew was compromised. Intelligence decided outcomes before aircraft ever took. Don't forget to subscribe